Los Angeles was thinking about doing a bingo night, and I happened to be an Orange County alumni chapter, and they were thinking about doing a bingo night. And I was like, can we just do it together so we can put everyone on the same bingo night? And it's now blossomed, and 2 other chapters reached out about joining us. So that's what we're doing, is teaming up with other in our situation. But like information communicating, we're just doing our newsletter and our normal Facebook posts. We're trying to be very, very conscious about Zoom fatigue and overload of information. So we feel we don't need to up it, but we are reaching out personally to people as well to get them to come to events.
Perfect. And I love that idea of, basically the snowballing of the telephone event impact of those events there, because literally that's one of the easiest ways kind of to start the snowball effect of literally just talking and sharing with one another. I think that's helpful too from a collegiate standpoint as well. So one of the big things is certainly from a VPAR standpoint, find sort of that advocate, whether it is the vice president of collegiate relations or just a local alumni who might have good connections, and make sure they know what's going on, because the best way I think for people to go to stuff is by getting that friendly reminder or friendly recommendation. So I certainly find that as a great way, and literally just talking can certainly help bring things through. Vito, I saw your hand up.
I was just going to say what Beth was talking about, when on happy hours, people tend to overtalk. Something we found is helpful is, along with having a theme, someone as the unofficial moderator at all time. Basically, if someone's starting to overtalk, try changing the subject, try getting other people's opinion. Like, I'll randomly say, hey, Kevin, what do you think about this? Or what are you doing this weekend? Just to keep everybody involved. And it's not just the same brothers talking over, talking over and over again. Because when you try to do a virtual happy hour, again, that other brothers may not want to come if someone else is talking. So not kind of picking on your brothers, but not so much in a friendly way. Like, well, I know Kevin knows about this, so here's this, or Molly knows about that. And then also engaging with collegiates. Something my VPCR has found is helpful is Instagram. A lot of the undergrads are on Instagram now, and interacting with them on a personal level, and then saying, oh, well, we're having a tailgate, or we're having a, we had a socially distanced responsible tailgate in LA County, Orange County. And then we're going to do other socially distanced things. So, hey guys, post a picture here, or personally DM them and make them feel like, oh, it's not just the alumni chapter reaching out. Like, they personally want me and my brothers there. So like we said on Saturday, adding that personal touch to things.
Yep. No, that's a great point, Vito. A lot of great points there. So it's perfect. And it was interesting on the channels perspective there. One of the chapters that actually mentioned that they use Slack as kind of their distribution list. So they also have alumni signed up for their Slack channels as well. So there's a lot out there, but I found that kind of an interesting idea to integrate, Slack in the kind of a way to communicate with alumni. I mean, obviously we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter. Are there any other social networks out there that people are belonging to where they're, LinkedIn, where they're getting communications, or from a collegiate standpoint where you guys are communicating with your members? No. Feel free to jump them in the chat, certainly there, as they're coming up. GroupMe, yep, perfect. GroupMe actually came up in the other one as well. Perfect, great. Well, I think we had some pretty good communications on communication, so we'll pop into the second topic there, which is really around the concept of re-engaging our lost alumni. So, I think, what often happens, even in the cases of newer chapters, is, alumni kind of come in and out of engagement. Maybe they were active after college and then started their career, or, started to have a family and kind of dropped out, or maybe it was vice versa. They, for some reason, were never active but wanted to come engaged. I think certainly collegiate chapters are always looking for ways to understand where their lost alumni are. So I think there's a wonderful resource here as you're working with your local alumni chapters to be able to do that. The question really becomes, what are some, good ways that we could actually work between collegiate alumni chapters to, start engaging not only with each other, but also with alumni who might be, more far-reaching. So I guess in terms of the, best practices for, working with your local alumni chapters, love to hear what some of the collegiate chapters out there are doing. How about Caitlin? Any insights? Miski?
Yeah, so our chapter is a little weird. Kappa Omicron is Missouri State, which is Springfield, Missouri. So we don't really have a local alumni chapter that's super close. Our closest is SLAC in KC. And so it's really difficult for us to try to engage with those chapters just because they're far enough away that people don't necessarily come down to our stuff and we don't necessarily go up to stuff in either location. There's been talk about trying to put together an alumni chapter here, but especially with how COVID's been going, it just hasn't really taken off. And I don't know if the people who have talked about doing it have really gotten the resources, information they need to like take off actually creating an alumni chapter here. So Missouri State's, Kappa Ocon's in a weird spot, I guess. So I don't know if I have any best practices because it's non-existent a little bit for us.
No, that makes sense. But in terms of those local alumni who are in the area, how have you been keeping them engaged and vice versa?
Yeah, so there's a few that like had been district director who just, kind of have been around. And then we have one particular like couple that knows another couple that actively reaches out to us. And sometimes that helps when they know other people. But for the most part, there's not a ton of known alumni that actively stay in Springfield. I can think of 7 maybe that we know of, or I know of off the top of my head that are for sure in Springfield. And for the most part, their engagement comes through if we post something about an event and specifically invite alumni on the Facebook page. Like we have a Facebook group. I've been trying to revamp our newsletter to include alumni. So I added in like an alumni spotlight and I reached out to the alumni I did know. And then luckily when I started sending that out, some people reached back out to me and wanted to be involved in that, including some of the people in Springfield. So hopefully as they see people that are in Springfield, we'll get more ideas of where people are at.
I love that. Actually, that's a great idea too, because it's showing that you care about the local alumni, obviously, which you do anyways, but then also kind of helping bringing some folks out of the woodwork too. So that's perfect. And I think it also helps the chapter members down the road, because then if you're looking for maybe an internship, which someone might be able to do, you have it there, which is awesome. Sure. I think you hit on an interesting point there, actually. One of the things that came up during the last session with a couple of chapters have actually been starting mentorship programs. And interesting, there are a couple of reasons why. Obviously, there's a dual benefit of their members getting some career advice and things like that, and obviously alumni being able to give back and mentor. But interestingly enough, a couple of them did say, yeah, we started this to kind of work as a way to actually boost up or fix our alumni database. And I think the key point there is they actually had a carrot there to do it. Obviously the carrot had some next steps in terms of needing to participate in the mentor program. But they said it really seemed to work well, and they were using things like LinkedIn groups, and physically searching through LinkedIn and working with their alumni relations office to kind of, one, spitball the program, 2, help get some of the reach outs to let people know about this program, and then 3, really to populate it. So early results seem pretty interesting. So that's certainly something that, we'll talk a bit more about that at the back end, but certainly a good way, kind of jumping off of your alumni mentor spotlight piece there as well. So that's awesome. Thank you. Any other thoughts from a collegiate perspective? I think I saw an Opal representative from Oklahoma State. I'm not finding your name really quickly, but any thoughts on that?
Basically what we've done in the past before COVID was we kind of went our closest alumni chapter is actually in Oklahoma City, which is an hour from us. So it's kind of hard to get our members to go down there to the alumni, like happy hour, like their little meetings. But something I tried to implement this semester was a mentorship program like you were just talking about. We didn't have very many participants within the chapter. That's one of our biggest problems, which is kind of why I'm on this meeting, so we can figure out how to engage our members a little bit more. But I think our biggest thing is like our Facebook and Instagram page is how we reach out to our alumni. But this semester I'm going to implement our newsletter.
Perfect. Great, I love that. Yeah, let's kind of double click on that piece there in terms of engaging kind of your alumni. Kevin Lim, I know you're a little bit in the same boat here in that your home chapter is about an hour away from you, and some of your other chapters are a bit, they're 45 minutes or so away. Any insights there in terms of, obviously you came right into the Boston Alumni chapter, but from a general perspective, how your chapter's been able to stay kind of in touch with you, or the local chapters have been in touch with you, and what's worked?
As of right now, it's part of it is because the reason why I'm in touch with my home chapter is because my home chapter is district director. But in regards to maintaining relationships with alumni, it's actually one of the chapter's bigger weak points, and that we're trying to improve upon. Like, they have a good relationship with their recent alumni, but with some of the alumni that were further down the line, relations are kind of shaky on that. And I'm so just kind of pulling ideas. I haven't really discussed it with our VPAR about like what he wants to do in regards to trying to hope in regards to an idea to improve upon it.
Perfect. No, great. Thank you, Kevin. And I think, a couple of things I could think of as I think of my experience in terms of with my home chapter is some of the things that kind of start getting me coming back is actually seeing they have been doing some recruiting videos on their Facebook page and inviting me in, and it kind of gives me a nod of, oh yeah, they're still there, or oh yeah, I should check back in and see what's going on with them. I feel like every time I see that, there tends to be something that gets me back in, and then they seem to be following that up with a newsletter and things like that. So sometimes a coordinated communication or the coordinated outreach tends to certainly help. So I found that pretty effective. One thing I certainly did in terms of reengaging lost alumni is, when I was VPAR, I kind of lucked out, and that was our 15th anniversary celebration. So, I kind of had, again, back to that carrot, I kind of had a carrot there to work with. So that's where kind of thinking of, what are some ways that maybe we could do some other carrots, whether it's, a homecoming, whether it may be a networking fair, the mentor program, might be some good ways to kind of start small. And I think you've seen from certainly some Facebook and some of the associated fraternity sites that popped up, simply just asking the question, hey, we need some help with, with professional events. We need some help with community service events, has been tending to bring folks out of the woodwork. I mean, I think even we saw with those early, frac happy hours there, how many people that pulled out of the woodwork. So I think things like that certainly help. And Kristen, I know you had a point, and I think you're back in.
Yes, can you hear me now, Paul?
Oh, I can. Welcome.
Perfect. Sorry, I was having some audio issues.
No worries.
So I'm Kristen Wazakowski from the Boston Alumni Chapter. I left DSP for a little bit, probably about 2-3 years. And I'll say I can't exactly explain what brought me back, but once I did come back, I got very involved as the alumni chapter vice president of collegiate relations, now president, and as a DD. So it happened pretty quickly. And one thing that was really cool was my collegiate chapter had noticed this because I knew a couple of brothers that were still collegiates and we kept in touch over the years. And so they actually did a feature on just what I did, basically. And I actually had 8 different brothers reach out to me after that feature to ask, hey, you mentioned and quickly highlighted that you were a DD for this chapter. What is that and how could I do something like that? Or a couple of brothers had actually moved to the Boston area and didn't know we existed. So they asked about that and ended up coming out to a barbecue. So that's something where I think when we do features of alumni and newsletters, for example, think past just alumni in your area too, and highlight ways that alumni are staying engaged. Because it has people reach out and say, hey, I actually know you, let me ask more about that. And another thing that they did that I thought was really cool was they highlighted alumni chapters of alumni, like where they typically went. So although my home chapter was in Buffalo, New York, they highlighted alumni chapters in Boston, in Texas, and in New York City because that's where brothers tended to move. And so I thought that was really cool as well.
Man, that's awesome. Thank you, Kristen. That was perfect. I'd like to say I think it was because of your alumni chapter president at the time that made you get re-involved. But that only works assuming it was the alumni chapter president at the time, which I think it was. Perfect. Erica actually has a good point here as well in terms of what the LA alumni chapter does, or is actually send out all region or emails out to all regions in the chapter, all chapters in the region. You can tell it's 7 o'clock, as a way kind of to promote their events, and certainly another way to kind of get some lost alumni kind of out there as well. So that's some great points. Oh, well, Wesley, looks like you have a point there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I'm my alumni chapter's president, and I fall into this trap too, where it's super easy to post on Facebook and it's super easy to send out an email newsletter. But like, so I live in the upstate of South Carolina, and we're not a big like alumni destination. Most people move to Atlanta or somewhere else. And so like we're only a couple years old and we're struggling to find our 10 members and keep them. And what I found is I'm actually having to physically mail pieces because only about a third of the local alumni, like when I go into the hub and I like pull all the area alumni, only a third of them have an email address. So when I send out an email, I'm missing 2/3 of my potential chapter that I could have. And I actually had an alumni this year who, she found me on LinkedIn. Like she had not updated her information with the fraternity in so many years that like, she didn't even have an account with them. She had to email central office and be like, hey, how do I update my information? Because, you know, it had been so long, but she found me on LinkedIn and she wanted to get involved. But she was like, we've got to do a mail piece because I know people that I went to school with and like, they don't have LinkedIn because they're retired or they just never jumped on that bandwagon. So like the only way to reach them is if we mail them something. So I think it's important that like, especially if you want to engage your older alumni, you have to mail something.
I think that's a great point. That's actually a really good point. And I actually did see one of the chapters in one of the regions when I was regional vice president do something very similar. They worked with their alumni relations department to actually send out postcards, inviting them to events and things like that. And it really worked. And Renee and Vito also brought up some great points in the chat as well about using the radius report from central office as well, and taking a look at your local alumni. And sending them out either mail or in an email or in conjunction with that to be able to kind of engage folks. And even if you think about, doing things such as Facebook or LinkedIn groups, and then doing some searching, especially along LinkedIn, for people in the area. That might be a great way too to kind of bump up some or re-engage lost alumni or found them, assuming of course they're on LinkedIn. But I love the mail idea. I think it's perfect. Yep. And I do agree as well, Beth, about keeping a running Excel database too, which I think is helpful. How do you guys, obviously, that Excel sheet's probably pretty big, but how do you keep that maintained all the time, Beth?
We've kept it for years, but we keep it with the treasurer. Mm-hmm. And then as we transition from treasurers, they pass it down to each other. But when Heather and the central office do send us updates or anybody that moved into the area, we automatically add them onto the Excel sheet. But we also, we keep our own extensive data on the members, when they joined and, their home chapter. I mean, a bunch of stuff on them to kind of help us out, because when people move in, because Atlanta is such a big area, then we can, kind of run through it really quickly when somebody's new, and we can reference where people are from or chapter wise and see if they can make any connections. And that really does help out a lot. And we also, as another thing, we try to, as much as we can, try to make sure that when we're looking at officers that are serving, that they're from a variety of chapters. Because we're such a large metro area, we try not to have too many people coming from one particular chapter. We have 3 chapters in metro Atlanta, and then we have 2 that are within 75 miles of the city, and then we have 2 additional chapters in South Georgia. So we literally have 7 chapters within a total of 4 hours from Atlanta. And yet I'm really actually pretty proud that our officers are from 5 different chapters. So it really, speaks volumes if you can get people to be officers from different chapters, because then you have different perspectives coming in together, and it helps broaden your reach, because then everything's not coming from one chapter perspective. And it also helps the collegiates to feel, the recent graduates to feel more like it's not just one chapter and that they're going to be an outsider. So it's just some tips if you guys can do it. But the database itself it's manually intensive, but we actually, when we have our transition meeting alumni wise, we actually spend some time reviewing that as well. And we actually target people that didn't pay dues, and we use that as an engagement tool. So we literally know year to year, who didn't pay dues. And then we literally, right now, I have a list of 5 people that still haven't paid dues for this year, that I'm personally going to reach out and say, hey guys, did you forget because we're virtual? So we have our little kind of officer assignments that we make to reach out specifically to people personally.
Wow, I love all those ideas. I think that obviously I'm in marketing, so I'm a data geek or database geek. So that is awesome. And then we actually had some few good ideas as well about using Google Sheets and things like that, certainly to keep it going. But any way you could keep that updated is certainly, I think, great. And it's a testament to you, to the chapter, to be able to do it for so long. It's funny, back when I was VPAR, we literally had a floppy disk of our chapter alumni roster. So it's good to see that there's a little bit more technology than the floppy disk. Although, Beth, your name was somewhere in that floppy disk.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Perfect. So it looks like I'm glad Heather's here. I noticed there's a few folks I missed for hands, but Michelle, you had some points as well.
Yeah, so I'm from the University of South Carolina, so that is a great area for us to be. So we're the state's capital, you have the University of South Carolina, and then you also have the Columbia Alumni Network. So we're actually able to work really closely with our alumni. But one thing that we've implemented kind of sparingly within our chapter is we've appointed our pledge class with like an alumni mentor or like a big. And so basically what that was it was just a way for the pledge to have just kind of somebody in their corner encouraging them through the process, and also to sit down and engage with. I'm not sure if we're, like I said, like it's kind of been implemented here and there, just kind of as it's needed, but it's definitely been something that has been implemented and has been successful in the past for us.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. Actually, they in the last call, one of the alumni chapters actually touched upon that. One of their goals is literally to be seen, or at least be as many events as possible. And the fact that, you know, you guys are your chapter is being a little bit more proactive in terms of bringing the alumni in and engaging them, and, you know, earlier point in the brotherhood life cycle is awesome. So that's really cool to hear. Jamie, how about you? It seems like you have some suggestions.
Hi there. Well, at North Hollywood, we're a brand new little baby alumni chapter. We just barely turned a year old, so we just started walking, and but our EC is full of seasoned members. I will say, I'm not going to call ourselves old. We're seasoned, and so we've all been a part of various alumni chapters and worked in different capacities with collegiate chapters. So we're really trying to think, like, why is it that we have such low alumni chapter engagement as a whole, and like what are some maybe more unique ways? So we have an idea, we haven't even really started implementing it yet, where it does seem when people are tapped on the shoulder, they're more apt to respond and come out. And so we are developing a plan where we're going to target recent graduates that just graduated in the LA area in the last year or two that live up in the valley where we're located. And we want to literally, you know, kind of like what Beth was talking about with the dues follow-up, where we're going to have, everybody's going to have their little list that they're in charge of, but just to do that one-on-one outreach and say, hello, Paul, I see you just graduated, and let me tell you, we are an alumni chapter right here in your area. And then our second component to that strategy is if we can get someone saying, yeah, I like to play bingo, I'll come, you know, tell me more about your next event. Then somebody else, maybe from their same chapter around the same time, to kind of do like a Noah's Ark idea where we feel like, and I can say this about myself as well, when I move to a new city or, you know, pretty much do anything new, even though I know, yes, they're my brothers, I might know somebody there, it's still intimidating. Whereas if I have someone to go in with me, that would take off a lot of the edge. And so that's kind of our strategy is if we get one that bites, then immediately loop in somebody else. So now we can say, hey, Paul's going. Beth, I know you and Paul were in the same chapter around the same time. Do you want to join? And that is our plan. Like I said, we haven't implemented it yet. We just are still working out the plan, but kind of new, radical, that's what we're going to try. Because we feel like the emails, the Facebook message, all of that, it's like still doesn't necessarily, like we get maybe a small turnout, you know, which are very brave, wonderful souls that just show up knowing no one. And we love and appreciate them, but we thought we got to try to focus this in a little different way.
Boy, I think that's a great way to think about it too. And I think it seems to have some legs. I mean, based on what South Carolina is doing there with the alumni mentor at the pledge level. So I think there is an appetite for it. So that's awesome. Can't wait to hear how it goes. Christina, how about you? I think you have some comments.
Yeah. So after reading the chat, some people were talking about Google Drives and things like that. So we actually have a Google Drive for every single one of our officers. That's an officer email. So it's like DSP chapter ops or something like that at gmail.com. So that's a great resource. And also we use Member Planet to send out our newsletter, and we can keep the emails in Member Planet so it can't get lost between people and things like that. So that's really a great resource for us too.
I love that comment. Heather's probably, I can't see Heather's video, but she's probably laughing because I've.
Yeah, I'm sure the people from Central Office on that call
No.
really appreciated that comment.
Yeah, no, I meant more laughing because I keep on saying, how can we set up lists and member Planet to help us with this? So I'm glad to see that I'm not nuts.
That I
she
said that. She did
yeah,
not
exactly.
want me to say that. We actually do use Member Planet. We are probably one of the chapters that uses it the most. So
that's awesome. Cool. Well, this was great. I mean, this was some great conversation here, and I think we had some really good tips. So excited to hear how some things turn out, and hopefully we had some good ideas to kind of jot some other people's minds. And we're already in from 3 to 5. Perfect. So the other piece here, and I think we touched upon this a bit, but certainly as we're looking at times when there's some fluidity, both in terms of the job market, in terms of finding a job and finding your first job, or needing to find your next job. There is certainly this alumni network that we could tap into. But certainly we need to know kind of the best ways to ask, or the best ways to tap into that network. So really what I wanted to kind of investigate here, what are some of the ways that alumni chapters are kind of helping collegiate chapters in terms of providing some professional advice or career advice to members, and then vice versa. What are some ways that collegiate chapters could use some help in this area? Let's see, any hands raised on this one? Renee, I feel like Space City's done some really good things along this area. Could be wrong, but any insights?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, it's more kind of how are you encouraging the alumni network to share kind of career and mentoring advice with collegians, and then vice versa, also using the network to help alumni kind of with career issues.
I mean, not to start randomly plugging things that I've done on the side. I created that DS speakers group in Facebook. Anybody that, if you haven't found it, just gsspeakers.com. It'll take you directly to the Facebook group. I found that, not all alumni can be engaged as a district director or as an officer in the alumni chapter, but they do want to be involved. They do want to give back. So creating that group and reaching out to different alumni about doing speaking events, turns out it's a great way to keep people at least peripherally involved with Delta Sig, and people are really excited about doing it. It's so far I've seen just people are just jumping at the chance to offer their talents and their experiences back to collegiate chapters and alumni chapters. So I definitely encourage everybody to either go join that group and start making requests for alumni speaking engagements, and for the alumni to go offer their services, because we've seen a lot of great engagement there from both sides. And then additionally, I mentioned earlier the Radius report. If you're looking for alumni speakers that are local to your area, you can go that route too. The Alumni Radius report, will pull everybody that's, I forget how many miles within your city, but shooting those emails out and letting people know, hey, we're looking for speakers on these various topics. You'll get more bites than you would think. When I first started doing this, I got an email back from a brother named Eduardo Aguirre, and if you Google that man, he's the former ambassador to Spain. He worked under George W. Bush and Barack Obama. So you just don't know who's in our network sometimes until you reach out. So just reach out, and see what comes back.
Perfect. I love that. Kristen, I was trying to text you about just, I'll call on you. You might go a bit around what the Boston Alumni Chapter is doing in terms of trying to offer some networking advice. And by the way, thank you, Renee. Some networking advice and career advice both for collegians and alumni.
Yeah, so the Boston Alumni Chapter has reached out a couple of times over the years to ask alumni what they would want to see. And this is an area that everyone continually asks for more. Some of the things we've done this year, we've had a very enthusiastic officer group. I can't take credit for any of the work. So thank you, Paul, Kevin, and JD, and Colin, who aren't here. But what we've done so far is we had a two-part event where the first event was actually a vice president of people, and we had a recruiter there as well. And they were able to openly talk with us about what they were looking for, what they thought the market was going to go towards, and how you could position yourself in the best way. We also sent out a Google Forms where people could submit their questions ahead of time. We wanted to vet them first and make sure that our facilitator, asked them in the most appropriate way and kept the conversation going, just because they were external to DSP. And we thought it was really important to keep that as a more facilitated conversation. And so to make up for the fact that it wasn't as open, we created the part 2 to the event. So about 2 weeks later, we had an open Q&A where alumni could ask recent alumni who are brothers kind of any question they had. So we had brothers who recently started jobs, whether it be a new job at their current company or switch companies completely. And basically they asked them, what's the best way to start remotely? How did you find a job during COVID? Because that was really difficult. And so just a couple of questions like that. For September, we have another event that is Startup Boston Week. And so we're also encouraging brothers to go out and take advantage of this external professional development opportunity. And then we're going to come back together and actually debrief on it as a group so that we can all learn from all of the different events. So the background there is they have over 200 speaking events. So obviously everyone has different interests, and you can come back and kind of tell us what was important or meaningful to you. So I think I covered it all. Let me know if I left anything out.
The registration link for the next one. No, that's perfect. Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate it. And Mayland, looks like you had some points here as well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Awesome. So I was kind of just looking at the first kind of like couple questions where it's like reaching out to alumni without pestering them, as well as like willing to help / streamline like things, as well as like kind of all three of them. But for me, this is my second semester as VP-AR, and my first semester I was like, you want to know what? Every week I'm going to send an email out to our alumni, and it was done through MailChimp, so they were able to unsubscribe if they needed to. But through that, I got a lot of positive feedback from the alumni because I kept it up every week. Like, it was hard, I will admit, to every collegiate, especially when we get around like midterms or finals where things get a little bit crazy for our student life. But what I did in that specific email was I put a form where it was basically, if you want to come talk to the chapter, or if you want to be a part of events that we possibly might be doing, please fill out this interest form. It gives them options for times. It gives them options to be, if like they want to do a social event, or because that's what I had planned at first. And then, or if they want to, you know, come in for a professional event. And because of the option of, and the, you know, like, I guess you could say subtle pleading of saying like, hey, if you want to talk to the chapter, reach out. I was able to bring in 3 alumni that same semester to come and talk. And then since I kept it up all the way until my throughout the next year, where I kind of like a semester break in between to explain, but this semester we decided, you know what, we're going to do an alumni panel for our recruitment. And I had at least, I think, 10 alumni that were like, I can do this, you know, if you want me to do it. And it's like giving them that option to like have the opportunity to come back. Of course, you're going to have a few alumni that are like super go-getters and reply every single time. But I had some alumni that, you know, I haven't talked to in the chapter for probably a couple years, or that there were people that, you know, are super seniors and they're like, oh my gosh, that person was here my freshman year. And we were able to get really good engagement because we gave them that like subtle option to like talk about things. And it's like, I already have a couple more events planned for later this semester that are based off that form, where they're like, I can do a professional event, or a lot of them were just like, I want to do a social event, come say hi to the chapter, and that kind of thing. So it's like giving them an open communication line really helps, especially if you're doing like a monthly newsletter, like putting a little sidebar on the bottom saying like, hey, reach out to us if you want to speak to the chapter. We'd love to hear from you, and that kind of thing. But also with that, having that thank you note at the very end when they actually come talk to you is one of the most important things ever. When we were in person, because my school is kind of online right now and we're not meeting in person, I would take a video of everyone saying thank you, says the person name, and like that kind of thing. And this time around, because of COVID, where everything's online, I'm having brothers and, you know, prospects, because we did recruitment, fill out a thank you card. And then what I'm going to do is just going to put it into like a giant, like nice looking document and sending it to them with hopefully a video that I'm hopefully going to work over Zoom to record and say, thank you, brother blank, for speaking to us, and that kind of thing. So having that engagement after of really just telling them how much you appreciate them talking really helps as well. And that's what I found to be super successful in my chapter.
Oh, those are some great points. I love them. And one thing certainly along that thank you piece as well is if you are connected with them, either on Facebook or LinkedIn, send that thank you through an update or a post. I think goes a long way as well. Does a couple of things. One, it starts to get that word out to their network. So if they're connected with any brothers that you might not be connected with or that are unengaged, it's back to that snowball telephone effect. And then two, especially if you're doing this from a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group, yeah, that certainly helps kind of start building up your wall of, you know, past speakers. And, you know, think about a perspective who's checking you out on LinkedIn or Facebook and sees some, you know, major professionals you know, giving speeches for your local chapter. I think that certainly goes a long way. So those are some awesome points here. And I think the general points of asking, just the simple ask, as we've said a couple of times, I think you're right, does go away. And, you know, sometimes too, you know, to avoid some of the pestering feeling as well, if you might be reaching out to an alumni that might not have been engaged, but you know they're a perfect fit for an alumni panel, or to offer some mentor advice in a specific area, make sure to tell them why you're reaching out to them. So if it's, you know, for example, if someone's would be reaching out to me, they might say, hey, notice that you have a pretty long background in B2B marketing. We have a few brothers in the chapter interested in that. Would you be able to spend 20 minutes with them to go over some of those best tips? So I think that's some great ways to kind of work that in as well. So we're coming up to the 5-minute mark. I think we talked about playing those joint events. I think it's kind of, they're going to the asking phase of it. So we get that part there. Good thing there was lottery numbers behind this. So I think we can, you know, basically hit the last two topics as we're going through. So there are a few next steps that will be coming up through this. You know, at the back end of the last week of the virtual lead sessions, each province will have their own provincial roundtable. So, you know, I definitely encourage you, everyone on this call, to attend their respective provincial roundtables. And really the goals of what we're trying to do from a National Alumni Development Committee is literally make that part 2 of this conversation. So that as you're going into those meetings, it's actually a way that you could actually start building on some of these programs. Start thinking about whether there's some joint events we could do, what are some small wins we could do. So certainly, you know, there'll be more information from your provincial chair on that, but you know, that's certainly the goal of that, and hopefully you can attend those. You know, I certainly encourage for chapters that do have local alumni chapters, you know, to be in regular communication with your respective Vice President of Collegiate Relations and Vice President of Alumni Relations. I found that super helpful, or I've always found that super helpful when I've held those roles. And something that, you know, I will actually be doing in my role as the Boston Alumni Chapter VPAR, or Vice President of Collegiate Relations. And then there are a couple of national initiatives, and I heard a lot of great ideas tonight. So I certainly hope a few folks in this call, well, actually all of you, to kind of help us out with these initiatives. But they're around literally some of the concepts we were talking about today around a member resource database pilot program and our graduating seniors project. So really the first program there, the member resource database, this is basically taken many forms. It started as the committee talking about how do we create a national mentor program to how do we literally just get our data in order to understand what people around the country are able to help in what areas. So really what we're wanting to do is actually prove that, one, this is a viable concept, that the ways to actually gather this information is somewhat straightforward, and that, two, that people would actually take advantage of it on both ends of the house. So we are looking for about 10 to 20 chapters to help us pilot this program. And the piloting will be all the way from the collection of the information to doing some events to certainly help see if you could add the mentor relationships. There'll be a sign up for that in the follow-up email, but certainly a teaser there. And the other piece as well is we're definitely looking for ways to engage our graduating seniors before they've actually looked for or leaving campus. So we're looking for some VPARs and certainly some VPCRs to assist us in really creating in essence a marketing campaign, all the way from emails to fraternity landing pages to social media teasers and updating presentations to be able to one, make sure that these graduating seniors know about the opportunities of alumni life, and two, and help them get ready. Although I do admit, Jamie, I also like your idea of the post-graduation buddy system as well. So that could be maybe more encompassing in this as well. But again, if you are interested in volunteering, there will be a note about this in our follow-up emails, and as well kind of through social media and other emails. So that's our session for tonight. I really appreciate everyone's kind of open communication and open idea sharing. I think what we heard over the past two sessions there is a lot of interest on both sides to help. There's really interest from collegians to really want to get alumni engaged within their chapters and give back to them and keep them informed. And there's a lot of interest on the alumni level to want to give back to those collegians and help them as well. So, we have a unique opportunity here. More things going virtual. I think we have the ability to interact and engage alumni and collegians in ways that we have never been able to before, never at least thought of before. So, I certainly challenge all of us on the call to take advantage of this opportunity, because I know we could do some great things. I know there's some great ideas out there to do it. So looking forward to seeing what the rest of this year does bring. And again, have a great night. I look forward to seeing everyone during those provincial roundtables and speaking to you then, and if not earlier. And again, great job, Heather, for keeping me on track and for your masterful production organization of this. So thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.